All right, coach. Have you ever run into a situation like this? This happened to early Trevor over and over and over and over and over again in my coaching career. Now, I would go and develop the absolute perfect plan for a client. I would figure out the foods they're going to eat, when they're going to eat them, the recipes, all of it, and I would give the client the plan. The client would be excited, they're ready to execute, and they would execute for a week or two until they didn't execute and the wheels would fall off and the dog threw up on the carpet and the kids got sick and insert whatever you want there. And early on in my career, I kind of thought of these as excuses, right? And mind you, I was a single fitness nut who really cared about this stuff. And I just couldn't figure out why my clients couldn't execute on it. And originally, I always thought it was willpower. Like they just need more discipline. They need more willpower. And if they just do that, if I can help them find that, they're going to be successful. Luckily, early on in my career, I was introduced to a company called Precision Nutrition. And I love their stuff. I love their certifications. JB, Dr. John Berardi, and Krista Scott Dixon, they became like informal mentors to me in my nutrition world. And so when I started studying PN, I started to understand this thing called habits, right? And habits beat willpower every single day of the week. And we're going to talk all about that on today's episode. This is Build with the CEO. My name is Trevor, and this show is to help you take your coaching and turn it into a real business. Today is all about habits and how habits beat willpower. Why are we talking about habits? Well, we do have this really cool thing coming up on July 16th. We are doing a virtual summit, and this is a nutrition coaching summit. So we're bringing on 10 experts, actually, it's 11 experts in the nutrition coaching space, and they're each going to speak on their topic of choice, their area of expertise. And we have a lot of heavy hitters inside of this summit, and it is live, so you can come in, ask questions. There'll be Q&A in every presentation. I'm hosting it, so I'll be there with the speakers all day long. We start at 9 a.m. and we go till about 7:30 at night. So you can see all of the speakers at summit.coachcatalyst.com. But some of the big ones here, we've got Lane Norton talking on metabolic adaptation. We've got Krista Scott Dixon talking about not so secret methods for better results. We've got Dan Gardner talking about some blood work and the biomarker advantage. My good friend Jen Brocksterman is coming on talking about why she ditched meal planning, which we're going to talk a lot about today. Eve Guzman's coming on to talk about macros and how to plan macros. And then Aaron Laverone is coming on to talk about habits. And then we've got Dr. Deborah Teplo, who is going to be talking about beyond motivational interviewing. They have a really, really cool conversational technique that goes beyond motivational interviewing. So if you're done motivational interviewing, this is kind of like the next step to it. And then we've got Aaron Power, Kane, my co-founder, and we've got Asher Health coming on as well to talk about some GLPs and where that world is at. So super cool summit. Definitely check it out. July 16th. It'll be in the description. And come join us. It's free and it's going to be an awesome time. But today we are talking about habits and why habits beat willpower every single day of the week. Now, I gave the story at the beginning about giving out a plan for the client and then them executing a plan for a couple of weeks and then falling off. So that is one of my issues with meal plans is people cannot execute them as well as they think they can execute them. Everyone asks for meal plans, right? That's probably what your clients ask you for is, hey, I want more meal plans. Tell me exactly what to eat. And then we give it to them and they don't actually do it, right? Because it's not really the right solution to their problem. They think that's the solution, but it's not really the solution. Behavior and habits is at the core of all of this. And this isn't to say that meal plans are bad. And I should put a little kind of caveat in here to keep our legal team happy. Nutrition coaching is kind of a gray area in most states. So we just want to be careful with nutrition coaching that we're not diagnosing disease, that we're not prescribing anything, and that our coaching is based around habits, it's around education, and it's around helping someone become healthier, right? Or improve their health. And so that's where we want to really stay in our lane because scope of practice is really important, especially in the nutrition world, because we do have registered dietitians and we do have nutritionists that do work with these kind of things. They work with disease and they help people They help people get healthier, and they prescribe specifics for those people. So it's just important to understand your scope, stay in your lane, do research in the state that you're in, and making sure that we're always staying compliant. So when I talk about meal plans today, I'm not talking about any sort of prescription. I'm talking more about kind of general meal plans, general ideas, meal guides that we may give clients to help them get a better idea on how to execute. Really, it's about education and it's about coaching, right? And so I always thought clients, the reason they didn't execute was because of discipline, right? Because they just didn't have the discipline, they didn't want it enough. And I think a lot of coaches that are getting started out, that's what they think. But once you've worked with people for long enough, you start to realize that it's not really a discipline issue. They are disciplined, right? And there's probably other areas in their life where they display discipline. It's just in this area they haven't been very successful. And the longer I've been a coach, the more I'm convinced that environment is the biggest factor here. So instead of trying to help someone build more discipline or build more willpower, we want to help them create an environment that they don't have to use willpower. The right choice is the easy choice. There's been a lot of research on willpower. And yes, it is kind of like a muscle that the more we use it, the better we get at employing willpower, but it is a finite resource. And we all know this, right? If you've had a really stressful day, a really taxing day, you get home at the end of the day and maybe there's something you really enjoy and you think you shouldn't have it because it doesn't fit with your plan, but you just have it anyways because like at the end of the day, you're like, screw it. You've used up all your willpower. And I think people that have kids see this see this more clearly than anyone else because when you have kids, you're constantly saying no, you're constantly redirecting. And so then when it comes to yourself, many times it's like, screw it, I'm just going to do what I want. Even though that may be the thing that doesn't serve me in the future, it serves me now, right? But it doesn't serve me in the future. And so helping our clients think about this a little bit differently and moving away from you need more discipline, you need more willpower to how do we create an environment that allows you to be successful? How do we create a system, right? And that's really where your value in is a coach, right? Your value is helping them strategize. It's helping them come up with those systems. A meal plan, like that's a commodity, right? There's AI, there's lots of things that can generate that probably better than any of us because it has more knowledge, it has more information, and it can create something more effective. But where it struggles is in the strategy and understanding the client and the emotions and everything else that is going on. And that's where your value comes in as a coach. And I think that's where our coach shines is providing that type of information. And so ultimately what we're doing in nutrition coaching, right, is we're helping someone create new behaviors because the behaviors and the strategies and the systems that they've used up to this point haven't been working, right? Because if they had been working, they wouldn't be talking to you, right? Or they wouldn't be purchasing your program. And so, yes, we need to provide the information, the education, the guides, the recipes, those kind of things. I think those are valuable resources, but that's not necessarily where we stop, right? That's where we start. And then where as coaches we step in and really start providing that value, that's around the strategies, the systems, and helping someone create the environment so that they can be successful. And that's ultimately what you get paid for. Because knowledge isn't really what the client's missing, right? We could go to anyone on the street that, let's just use being overweight as an example, right? We could go to anyone on the street that might be overweight and we could ask them questions about nutrition. And they could tell us likely that, like, they should eat sufficient protein, that vegetables are good for us, they have vitamins and minerals in them, that we should be conscious of total intake, all of these kind of things. Like they know this, like they're conscious of this, but then why aren't they necessarily executing on that, right? And that's your job as a coach to figure that out or create the system that you can use with people so that they can be successful in the long term, right? Because a plan, let's say we give someone a plan that's kind of a static document, right? Here's the plan, cool. But that's not really how life works, right? Life is messy. Things get in the way, right? Things come up and then we need to be able to adjust. And so if my only frame of reference is a meal plan, right? And I can't follow my meal plan, well, then screw it. Like I can't follow the plan. But if we can teach clients the underlying principles, right, on what they're trying to execute, I'm trying to get a vegetable with every meal. Cool. I'm going out to McDonald's. How could I get a vegetable with this meal? Right? Because I don't have time. I'm going through a drive-through, right? What's the best choice I can make? And as coaches, that's how we want to empower our clients to be able to make those decisions. And that was a shift that we really needed to make at our facilities. Initially, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, we ran challenges early on in our career as a facility. And we would run these 6-week challenges. The training was dialed in, it was awesome. But our nutrition coaching was very informational. It was here is the information, go and execute. And some of our clients, like a small percentage of our clients, would do beautifully because they just kind of needed the plan. They needed a little bit of accountability showing up. And honestly, those people would be successful in anything, right? They're kind of the outliers. So I don't really care about those people because they're going to find a way to be successful no matter what. I'm caring about the other, 90, 95%. And like, why weren't they as successful as we want them to be? And it came down to us was we were just giving them more information that they already kind of knew, right? And we weren't really providing any accountability around executing that information. We weren't giving them a proper roadmap on how to execute that information. We weren't encouraging them to think about their environments and crafting an environment that allows them to be successful. Because ultimately, I think that is the lead domino in all of this. If we have an environment, or if we can help our clients create an environment that allows them to make the right choice, the easy choice, they're going to be successful long term, right? But if we put someone into an environment where they have to constantly use their willpower and say no, and there's brownies sitting on the counter and there's this or that isn't supporting of their goals, they're going to have a really hard time being successful, right? So creating that environment is a huge piece of it. And so if you are doing meal plans, if you are doing that kind of stuff right now, I think there is some value in it. And I think it can supplement some of these other things. But I want to encourage you to think more about the behavior and the habits and what are they thinking about? And how do we help a client instill those pieces and help them improve those pieces? Because then when they do have the meals and the recipes and those kind of things, they actually stick better because I understand the underlying principles. And now that client can be successful in the long term. So there's been a few things I kind of learned over the years, and I want to share a few of them with you. Just very basic things, and these may be things that you already know that you just need to get reminded of, and they may be some things that you haven't heard before. But I want to give you a few of these because I think there's some nice coaching tools that you can use with your clients in order to help your client be a little bit more successful and help them get away from using willpower all the time and help create systems and strategies so that they can be successful in the long term. So the first one that I've noticed with a lot of clients, and this is brand new clients, probably run into this the most, is when I have a client come in, they want to do it all. They are ready, they are motivated, they're ready, willing, and able, right? And they are motivated to make change because the pain right now, they came to see me because the pain is great enough for them to ask for help. Cool, right? There's some motivation there. And so I'll have a client come in and let's say they want to do training, right? They'll say, hey, I want to train 5 days a week. And I'll be like, how about we start with 3, right? And they'll be like, oh, no, I want to train 5 days a week. Like, how about we start with meeting with a coach 3 days a week? And then I'll explain why. Because right now you're motivated to do 5. But in my experience in working with people, I haven't found a lot of people that are really successful with that. And so what happens to most people is they set the goal of 5 and then they end up not being able to make 5. Maybe they get 4, right? But the goal was 5. So they actually feel like they didn't accomplish the goal and they feel a little discouraged despite getting 4 out of 5. And then they feel like, well, screw it. It's not worth it. If I can't do it as well as possible, if I can't do it to perfection, what's the point of doing it at all? So they end up quitting. And it's a very common occurrence. And so I explained that to the client. Hey, what if we start at 3? Like, I love this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you could execute this week over week? And if it isn't a 9 or a 10, and that's a question I got from my PN schooling, but If it's not a 9 or a 10, we need to make it a little bit easier, right? And so, number one is, how do we make someone's behaviors or habits that they're going to work on, right, easier, so that even when it all hits the fan on a given day, they're still able to execute, right? I even like some range habits. Like, what's the floor with this habit and what's the ceiling with this habit? So if it's the worst possible day, what's one thing I can do that at least, gives me a little win in that column? Is it doing 10 air squats? Is it doing 50 push-ups if it is a movement-based one? And then what's the ceiling? What's perfect day? You can execute it. You can execute it perfectly. Sometimes having a little bit of range with habits can be helpful in getting someone consistent wins, right? But number one, let's try and make it small, and let's make it very doable, even on bad days. The second one that I found to be really effective with clients is anchoring it to something else that they're already doing, right? Let's say we want a client to start drinking more water, right? So what could we anchor drinking water to make it a little bit easier? Maybe they have coffee every morning, right? And that's just a part of their ritual, part of their routine every day. Could we have a glass of water before they have coffee or after they have coffee to get another glass of water in their day? Because we're anchoring it to something that they're already doing, right? We don't have to remind them to do it, because the reminder is the thing they're already doing. And so we can layer some other things on there, like some physical cues where we have maybe a Post-it note or something as a little bit of a physical reminder, but we're anchoring it to something else. And that makes it just a little bit easier to execute, because one of the reasons people don't execute well is they forget, right? It's a new behavior. And this is something we talk about with our Coach Catalyst users, right? Coach Catalyst is an app, right? It's an app that's used by clients on their phone. Now, if the client downloads that app, it's going to go to page 72 of their iPhone. That's not very helpful, right? Because this is a new app. I just downloaded it. I don't really remember what it's called. And so if I have to search for it, I'm just not going to be successful with that, right? And we all know that push notifications are super busy. So push notifications aren't really all that effective either. So what if we just got them to take that app and move it to their home screen? So now every time they open their phone, they see the app. And better yet, it's branded to our business. So our business is on their phone. Our coaching practice is on their phone every single time they open it. So they know they have a direct portal to us. And then there's a little red dot that shows up on it that lets them know that there's something inside that they need to do, right? So we're engineering an environment that makes the behavior, the thing we want them to do, easy, right? So how can we anchor that to something they're already doing? They're already opening up their smartphone, right? So the app is going to be right there. Okay. The third one, and I've talked about this one through this entire episode, is how do we engineer an environment that makes the right choice the easy choice? And when you can get a client to do that, success becomes way easier, because now if I want to have that pint of ice cream, I leave the house and I go have it. So it takes away that I can't have it. It's just, I'm not going to have it in my house. I can have it, but I'm going to go out of my house to eat it. And now what happens is you're probably going to do it less frequently, because there's a little bit of an annoyance in there. It's 10:30 at night and you're like, I don't want to go to the gas station, or I don't want to go to McDonald's to get one. So you don't, right? And so we engineer an environment that makes success easy on a daily basis. We don't vilify these other things. We just make them a little bit harder to get. Some coaches, and I've used this one in the past too, where you take the things, if a client maybe isn't ready to get rid of them out of their house, we take them and we move them into the basement, right? Into a room that makes it a little bit more challenging to get to. Create a barrier that gives the client the opportunity to be able to pause and think, is this something I really want to do right now, or really need to do right now? Giving them that space to just think through it gives them an opportunity to then make a conscious decision rather than just unconsciously, raiding the pantry, right? So we want to engineer the environment that the default choice becomes the right one. The next one, and this is a little bit different, and not a lot of people are talking about this. A lot of people talk about streaks, right? And wanting someone to maintain a streak and going through. We actually have streaks inside of Coach Catalyst, so you can maintain your streaks, which has some benefit, and certain people are really motivated by streaks. But I think a better conversation to have is like, what do we do when things aren't going right? Right? How do we bounce back? Having the bounce back conversation. Because over the 15 years of coaching, what I've found is the clients that have the most success long term are the ones that bounce back the best. Because if you keep bouncing back, you keep giving yourself an opportunity to improve. But if you do awesome for 6 weeks and then you do terrible for 6 weeks and then you do awesome for 6 weeks and then you do terrible for 6 weeks, you end up going nowhere. But if you take 3 steps forward and 1 step back, and then 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, you're still moving forward. And being resilient and bouncing back is a skill that someone can develop. And when they developed it, they're going to have more success over the long term. And then the last one that I want to leave you with today is one habit at a time. And so I know we want to try and give everything to clients right away because we want them to get the fastest results, the fastest results. And we know they'll get faster results if they do X, Y, and Z every day at high intensity. And I think there are times when we can push. Like, I'm not in the camp of like, we can only do one thing at a time and we always need to do one thing at a time. I think there are times when a client is motivated enough or we have an external motivation where we can do some crazy things and get crazy results in a very short period of time. But that is not a long term, that is not a long term plan, right? That's not a strategy that I can use over the next 6 months, 12 months, 6 years, right? Strategy I can use for 14 days and 28 days. Like, that's cool. But we want to be teaching strategies that allow a client to be successful for life. And being highly focused on one thing gives someone the greatest chance of success. And what I like is I like a stacking type of pattern. And we've actually developed programs. There's a couple programs inside of Coach Catalyst that are stacking based that you can use with clients, or we work on one thing for a period of time, 7, 14 days. And then we add a second thing. So we're working on the first thing and the second thing. And then we add a third thing. And then we add a fourth thing. And so we keep the complexity really low at the beginning and we increase it as someone's capacity and capabilities improve because we're building success. We want someone to see themselves as someone that can do this, right? And when we do that, it allows them to build the mindset they need in order to be successful. The mindset that I am someone who does this. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who can make changes, right? I am someone who can bounce back. And they start to internalize that, which then allows them to be successful. And it starts to crowd out some of the other stories they may have going on inside their head. So, what do I have? 5 things there. Make it small, anchor it, engineer the environment, coach the bounce back, not the streak, and then one habit at a time. This is like ultimately the coach's job, right? The plan, like I said earlier, is a commodity, right? Behavior change is the craft, right? That's what we get paid for. And so you can give them the PDF, you can give them the app, you can give all of those things, but your job as a coach is to help that client change the behaviors they need to change in order to have the long-term success that they want to have, right? And it is a learnable skill. Behavior change is a learnable skill. They just need reps. And we want successful reps too. We want them to get reps at being successful. This is actually the whole reason we created Coach Catalyst, right? The whole reason we created the app was to give coaches better insight into how their clients were doing because the process was broken, right? Me sending you a text message to get an update every day is just not a sustainable, scalable process, right? But if we're using technology to be this medium to transport information, now as a coach, I can work with 15, 20, 30, 50 people and not want to pull my hair out because I have everything on dashboards and everything right there. And I can be a coach and I don't have to spend all my time doing that admin. So that's the whole reason we created Coach Catalyst, was to be that bridge between the coach and the client. It's not to take away coaching, right? But it's to free up what the coach does best, right? And that's helping the client overcome obstacles, strategize, create environments, support all these human characteristics, and get rid of a lot of the admin. So, if you joined us mid episode, we've got a nutrition coaching summit coming up on July 16th. It is live, it is virtual. We have 10 talks throughout the day, 11 different speakers. We are talking on all topics of nutrition. It's actually a really, I'm really stoked with how this lineup came together because we have people talking on macros, we have people talking on habits, we have people talking on why they ditched meal plans. We have people talking on metabolic adaptation, reverse dieting. We have people talking on conversational skills, change skills. It is literally like a buffet of nutrition coaching. And so, no matter what type of nutrition camp you might put yourself in, there's going to be something at this summit for everyone. And it is all live, it is all free. You get the recordings for free for, I believe it's 72 hours or 48 hours once everything gets done. And then we do have a huge VIP pack. It has like $6,000 worth of stuff in it, along with the recordings and everything else. For coaches that want to go a little bit deeper with any of the speakers, or they want a course, or they want assets to use with their clients, there's just a ton of stuff there, and just a massive, massive, massive amount of value. So take what I've taken today, or take what I've talked about today, and find that one client that you can execute some of this stuff on, right? Can we move away from they need to be more disciplined, they need to have more willpower, to how do we create the behaviors, the habits, the environments that allow a client to be successful? So that's the mission for today. My name is Trevor. This is Build with the CEO, where we help turn your coaching into an incredible business. I'll see you here next week. Later.